As he mentioned, I'm Tracy Ginyard. I'm the manager of diversity recruiting at Bain & Company. We are a strategy consulting firm. So prior to, I earned my undergrad degree at Spelman College, and I went to The Ohio State University for law school. I took over this team about 2 years ago. So all 4 of Bain's affinity groups roll up to me. So our affinity groups are Blacks at Bain, Latinos at Bain, Veterans at Bain, and our LGBTQ network, which we call Be Glad. Prior to joining Bain, I had a career in on the legal services side. So I did diversity and recruiting and retention at large law firms. Most recently I was at Sidley Austin, which is actually a big Chicago law firm. But I was at West, and then prior to that I spent some time kind of on your side of the world in higher education, so in career services at UCLA and Columbia. I think what brings me here today is Bain's use of mobile technology at Howard University. So wanted to just kind of frame this conversation and give you a little bit of context. So I chair the diversity committee for DETF, which is Digital Education Technology Fund. And their mission is really focused on bringing digital technology to historically Black colleges and universities. And these are just some of the corporate partners that sit on the committee with me. So we are all users of the Howard application, and then we also advise DETF on how to advance their strategy more broadly, which is why I'm here today. So before we kind of get into our use of Bain's use of the mobile technology at Howard University, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the recruiting process. And I will say you guys are not my normal audience. Normally it's an audience of recruits, undergrad students, or MBA students. So I'm not sure how familiar you may be with this process, but it's a pretty long process. This is kind of the standard timeline. I'll go ahead and put everything up here for the undergrad side and MBA. So it really starts August, September. Seems like it's starting earlier and earlier, but we do a lot of marketing events. So at the bottom, you'll see global presentation, networking events, coffee chats, case interviews, case prep, different things like that. So it's a really labor-intensive and time-intensive process at the marketing side. And then we kind of go through the cycle: apply, interview, and then offer, which is another kind of set of events. We have a number of teams at Bain specifically that are engaged in the recruiting process. So we have my team, diversity recruiting. We have office teams, we have school teams, we have external partnerships. So all of this just to show you that we have a lot of targeted outreach recruiting events. So we're constantly sending people to campus, constantly trying to innovate and find ways to engage with students. Bain specifically, we go to over 40 undergrad schools, and I would say that Howard University is the only one that leverages mobile technology in the Career Services office. So we were pretty pleased when we set out about a year ago to revamp our recruiting efforts at Howard. It's part of our strategic priorities to increase the number of Black talent, and so we decided to do that. We were going to increase our pipeline from historically Black colleges and universities. We have an office in DC, and so Howard is in our backyard, and so up here you'll just see a couple of kind of goals and priorities of what we wanted to accomplish by recruiting at Howard. So for Bain, we wanted to identify and build relationships with talent early on. So primarily really focus on freshmen and sophomore because it's a really competitive game. For students, we wanted them to, brand recognition, to gain insights on what it was like to work at Bain, what it actually takes to get through the recruiting process, and all of that. So, and then ultimately the goal was to increase the actual number of Howard students in our recruiting process, and so in our internships and some of our programs, and then ultimately full-time at Bain. So we set out about a year ago. We called Career Services. We signed up for info sessions. We signed up for resume reviews, and a number of on-campus events. As you can imagine, it was costly. Although we have a DC office, we flew people in from other offices. Just the time that it took to go to campus. And we were advertising, through Career Services, putting up flyers, and other kind of antiquated ways to reach students, but that's what we know, and that's kind of what we do at our other 40 plus schools. And we were not successful. Our events were not well attended. When we did a survey at the end of the season, it was, people didn't know about us, so they weren't coming to our events because they're inundated with lots of different types of employers, and we have lots of different type of events to go to. They didn't know about our events. We were hosting events in our office instead of on campus and different things like that. So when we had another call with Career Services, they suggested we come to a career fair. And so we did, and Bain doesn't actually do a lot of career fairs, but we went to the career fair, and that's when we learned about the app that the School of Business uses. And so we talked I heard firsthand from Bank of America and Wells Fargo about how they use the app and how they had success, doing push notifications, saying, Bank of America is hosting an event in this room, and then how 30 plus people showed up, minutes later, and how just firsthand accounts of how the app really worked. So immediately Bain signed on to the app. And our goals for the use with the app were similar to, just our recruiting goals, to build brand recognition, engage students, and then increase our pipeline into a lot of our programs. So this is just kind of a screenshot of kind of what our page looks like on the app. The app has a lot of features that we really leverage. Push notifications, we post jobs on there. The app is integrated with a lot of career services. If there are any career services people use, Handshake and other systems, Simplicity, things like that. And the app is fully integrated with those platforms, which as a recruiter, it's helpful not to have multiple, for all the technologies to be talking to each other. Students can apply directly to careers, to positions through the app. For our events, we ask students to sign in so we can track attendance. They can do that directly through the app. There's a calendar, there's location, information and contact information. We can load bios and different things like that through the app. And branding, there's featured employers, so it can, it can scroll and kind of pop up banner notifications and different things like that. And a new feature of the app that we're excited about to use in the fall is the chat box. So that way we, as recruiters, don't have to be on campus quite as much and can still be engaging with students. So this is how we use the app. I will admit we started using the app at the end of our recruiting season, but we had one program, and so we were confident that the results, all the early indicators are pointing to success for use of the app, and we're definitely going to continue. But this is just kind of a snapshot. We had a one-day workshop at the end of the recruiting season, so it was targeting more freshmen and sophomores. And so it's called Experience Bain. And the application went live. You'll see we had very little applicants. A couple of weeks after it went live, we were doing advertising through kind of the, posting it on Handshake, and Career Services was sending it out in email blasts and things like that. This was around the time we signed on to the app, so we were able to leverage the app to do push notifications. And you'll see once we got on the app, we were really able to drive applicants to the app. And again, this was a new school for Bain, and so we're really building our brand. And so we were pretty pleased just to get 30 plus, applications. We saw a larger number engage with the application because we were able to track that through the app. And then ultimately we got more applications than we thought for the program, so we were pretty excited. So this is just kind of a snapshot of some results from one of our programs. And then this is just kind of a report of the analytics that in real time you can get, leveraging the app, which is really helpful for us to see this isn't Bain's specific page, but this is kind of just an overview. You can see what pages get the most traffic, and that really just helps us refine our strategy of, we think, what we do at other schools is probably a little antiquated, and so this really helps us refine, like, how is it that students want to receive information? How is it that they want to engage with employers? So this is just helping us be more efficient and kind of more with the times to recruit students more competitively. I'll stop there. Are there questions? Oh, one in the back.
Hi, So I was wondering, do you, does Bain and the other partner companies have direct access to the app, or do you sort of supply the information to their career services office and they make the changes, and do you have direct access to the analytics, or?
We have sorry. So the second part of your question, we do have direct access to the analytics, so we can get that in real time at any time we want. The way that it's set up specifically right now, at least at Howard, is we provide the information to kind of the DETF, our contact. They're kind of the liaison between the employers, or we can provide it to career service and they will post the content. I believe that's a service that we're paying for though. The technology is such that we could make updates to the app ourselves. And so I think that that's the direction that we're moving, because specifically at Bain, we have apps for like different events, and so we kind of manage those. So we're probably in a position where we're comfortable managing those, but I think some employers, like I know my colleagues at Wells Fargo and Bank of America, they like paying for a service that has somebody else provide, they just give the information to them and then it's pushed out to the students.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, okay.
More about your ability to access the back end. So is there a wait period, or do you have, is someone there to approve your work, or your, whatever it is you're about to push out? Like, how does that work?
Of I guess like the screening and like approval and different things like that. But since we use kind of the liaison to push out for Howard, we give them directly what we want pushed out and they push it out. Yeah. I think the beauty of this is that there's a lot of different ways to configure it. So if you wanted to own, like I said, the direction we're moving, we'll own our own page kind of going forward. Then we can set all those parameters on the back end of like who has access. Is it me? Is it someone on my team? Is it someone else? You can kind of control all of that on the back end specific to what you want. So can you repeat the question?
What's the next generation?
Generation. I mean, I think it's probably some use of virtual technology, virtual reality. I think that if that could be integrated, that's something, because a lot of this is, like I said, Bain goes to 40 plus schools, right? So the goal of leveraging digital, mobile technology is how can we reach more students, and how can we further build our brand and increase our brand kind of to a wider audience. We're a global company. So I would say the more we can engage with students more broadly, so like even doing office tours, being able to chat in real time, like the chat function we're really excited about. But so we have some goals of where we would like to see, or some vision of where we would like to see using technology. I mean, I think for us, just the next step is getting more schools and career services to use the app before we even, innovate on the app. I think that would be helpful, because I think that, this is how students are accessing information, particularly as other parts of universities and colleges go to mobile technology. It would be nice to have career services along with, admissions and some of the other departments.
I think, needless to say, it's unusual to see third-party banners in a university app. How can other universities maybe encourage their own administration to allow companies like Bain to do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this is the direction employers want to move. And so I think having conversations, with your career services and your big employers on campus, particularly I think if they found out that other parts of the university were going to more mobile technology, I would think that this is, a lot of that can be driven by your employers that want to come on campus, because this makes our job a lot easier. There's even a function, being talked about on the app of having information about how you recruit at that school, like a master calendar with like all the important dates to keep track of. And for big companies like Bain and other companies, we're going to so many campuses, to have that kind of all ready in one place is a huge time saver. So I would say, start engaging your career services and your employers about bringing this technology to your campuses. Other questions? Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for your time. I'll be around for a few minutes if anybody has questions for me.
All right.